XLR.
Hey guys, so this is my first video on YouTube. It will be a little breakdown of how I made MISEDUCATION. I'm mostly recording this because I want to get my music channel verified, and the requirement is that I have to make a video connected to one of my songs that I have released. But also I hope you'll enjoy it and maybe learn something about either Ableton or my workflow. So yeah, stick around and let's jump straight into the
Instrumental.
Okay, so here you have the full project. It was fully made in Ableton compared to FFF, which was partially made in FL Studio and Ableton back and forth. It has a few distinct parts, which I will go through separately. And I can also share a few fun facts regarding the song, regarding the whole project. Yeah, so let's start off with the
Main synth.
Okay, so the main synth is this one right here, the blue one. To be honest, I didn't make the sample. It was taken from Sample Focus, from which I take most of my samples, and I just really like the chords. They're the main part of the chorus, the most striking one, let's say. I think they are one of the most significant parts of the song because they give it that grand feel. They sound very analog. I don't know what gear they were made on. What I did to them was only cut the low frequencies, add some OTT, which I usually do to brighten up the mix. And yeah, that's how they really sound in the song. It's this one here. Except from that, they change from time to time a bit, because here in the introduction I just used an automated low pass filter. I just automated the cutoff on the EQ, and I also made this with my producer and music teacher. We made those... Oh, I didn't want to do that. We made those swells and added some reverb tails. I'm not sure if there was delay. I think it was only reverb. Which is here on the one of the sends, with which, you know, it gets more pleasant to the ear. The transitions are not as striking. So for example here, you have this reverb tail, and it also cuts off here. And then after I made the first part with the sample, we decided to resample that and put it through some heavy reverb so that it is just this ear candy that you can hear in the beginning and in this breakdown where the synth bass comes in, and it sounds like this. So yeah, it's this very subtle background sound effect, this texture, which you can see, which you can hear in the beginning and in the breakdown. I think it's very important. I didn't think it would be that important, but after we added it, it really became one of my favorite parts of the whole instrumental. And yeah, and it stayed that way, and it fills up the empty space that was in those parts beforehand. And also, adding up to the main synth, we made a few of those risers. As I said before, we made those tails when it cuts off, and we also decided to make a riser so that, you know, the entry of the synth is more pleasant. I can show you right now. So, as it is soloed out now, it does not feel as, you know, coherent, but in the context of the whole song, it actually does.
Wish to have her only ship by which I write. Yeah, I think I found what I want to ride with when I say we ain't never stopping, ain't no fucking.
Like, you can barely hear the change, so it's really nice. It's a really nice accent, and I love it. Okay, so I think now we can move on to, I think, actually the most interesting part of the song, because this is where I mangled the most with the whole instrumental, and these are the
drums.
So the story of the drums is actually quite interesting because at first it was a completely different drum loop. I didn't make it myself. It was taken also from Sample Focus, and it is this very, as my teacher told me, Bounty Beach sounding like drums. They sound like this. Yeah. So what's interesting is that it was the first loop that actually was supposed to be also on the drop, on the introduction, everything. Even before we made this very reverbed out main synth. So yeah, the song would be completely different with that sample. Of course, it ended up not being on the song because I decided it would be too corny and it wouldn't sound good. And I'm very, very glad that I decided to make this change because I don't know if I could listen to this track with like a straight face if it had those drums. Right now, the drums consist of pretty much 3 parts, in which we have the main drum loop, which is, I think, 5 or 6 different patterns, which sounds, of course, like this. So it was made with the native Ableton drum rack. For the drums I used, these were taken from a pack which I've got from Reddit. It is all drum machines since the 70s. There's like, I don't know, dozens if not hundreds of different folders with one-shot samples, some sample loops, everything that you could find or on MPCs, old Rolands, old Korgs. It's such a big database that I really recommend it to everyone that wants to get creative with drums. So it maybe does not have the most modern drums for some EDM or dubstep, but still it is a very nice alternative if you want to have something more old school, something more avant-garde. I think it's a really nice choice. So you have those normal drums, which have a few breaks at the end. The main rhythm looks like this. It is the one you can see in the intro, and I think it also, very similar version goes through the chorus, which is this one. It has this little stutter, which I added. Then we have those backup snare claps, which I use. They sound like this. They actually do sound quite EDM-y, but they're just taken from the same pack. What I did to them was I put them through an EQ, a lot of saturation, some erosion to have this half, let's say, resonating, bit crushed sound with the sine option, and some reverb, of course. For the normal drums, I have OTT and a bit of reverb to make them, let's say, a bit more shiny. And the third part of the drums, which I used, were resampled breaks for the end of the loop, like a part of the chorus, which together sound like this. So what I did to them was to just, as I said, resample the breaks, which I made beforehand with the main drum kit from the drum rack, and then put them through some effects. Yeah, as you can see, here's a compressor on the crashes. They also had some reverb. They also have a reverb tail added here so that, you know, it gives it that bigger explosion at the end when the loop starts over or the chorus ends, as you can hear in context here.
Educated me, I broke the regulation. Too ambitious for my area, different destination.
You can hear this last crash hitting and this explosion. I think it's really nice. It adds a lot to the dynamics. It also gets rid of the energy build up in the chorus. I really love it, and I think it was a very nice idea to change up the drums. Yeah, and I'm very glad I did it. So for the next part, I think I can move on to the
second synth and sound effect.
Okay, so actually right now I will be covering two synths because the first one I used was this melody that I recorded using Surge XT, which is pretty much my go-to VST synth, partially because it's free and I don't buy plugins, and also it's just very versatile and I'm used to it. And also the second synth, which is the bass line that you hear in the second part of the song. Beforehand, I thought that I would use the first synth again in the chorus as it repeats, but I decided to use the Reese bass that I created, and I think it ended up being more, let's say, interesting, less cliche. So right now I will go through those, and I have some risers and some sound effects that appear in the second chorus. Okay, so to start off with the first synth, it uses, as I said, Surge XT, and it has this Smoothness World Cup preset from the leads in the factory patches. From what I think, I often do tweak some of the sounds, but I'm not sure what I did here because I don't really remember. I would have to compare it to the original preset. It gives here the stars, so it means that I probably did something else to it, but I'm not sure what, so I don't want to lie. Then I put it through some saturation, some reverb, turned down the gain for the intro because the synth comes in very slowly. As you can see here on the utility, the gain is increased gradually. And then it was put through some EQ to get rid of the resonating frequencies, as I think it's quite common to do with some more bell sounds, some leads, stuff like that, which can have those very high, very ear-piercing resonances. It's just nice to get rid of those. And then some utility to boost it up a bit in the mix because it was too quiet. So let's hear it as it comes here. I have the rendered version, so I will play this one, and here is just the MIDI. In the first chorus it plays this melody. And in the beginning it plays this melody. Okay, so let's hear it. Yeah, so this would be the first synth. Now for the Reese bass, it's nothing fancy. I made this on myself. It is just a saw wave which is pitched down 1 octave, and it has a cutoff filter made with the EQ. It also kills some of the resonances, cuts down the unhearable bass, which just muddies up the mix, and it has some saturation to give it this, more angry analog vibe, and I think it came out really nice. It's nothing too fancy. I could have maybe made it a bit more complicated, but I'm very satisfied with it, and it sounds like this. Yeah, also for the second chorus, the bass stays here, but it opens up for a second to create a riser by itself also. I'm not sure, but I think it was made accidentally because I just wanted to open up the filter, but then we decided to put the Reese bass also in the second chorus and closed it, so it just this little pop-up. Okay, now for the sound effects, we have two most distinct ones, one of which is a riser and a fall, which sound like this. These are made from two sounds which I found in the Old Drum Machine's huge drum kit. I think it's both a stomp here, this one, and kind of a radio static that I decided to fade in. So they have an EQ, and they are also assigned to a delay, and this delay also has a saturation on itself, so it is more bright, more harsh. It's called a Morse code sound effect. It was a sample which I cut up, which now sounds like this. This is the first part, and then I decided to resample the reverb tail of this one and made it a bit of a riser. It then goes to this first part of the sample, which cuts off very quickly. It's this small little sound that is here in the second part of the chorus, just to make it a bit more interesting. And to make it, I used utility, for which I assigned the gain with an LFO to make it the sort of a gate with the saw pattern, and then added a compressor to get rid of the peaks, because this certain sound effect had very harsh peaks because it's a short sound and I wanted to tame it down a bit. So yeah, I decided to go for a compressor, and then of course some utility to get the gain back to the normal level so that I can mix it. And also the whole group has some reverb on it so that it is just more fitting in the mix itself. Oh yeah, also one sound I forgot about was the bass that is in the beginning, which I added pretty much last minute because I was working with my producer and we decided that there's something missing in the beginning, and I used a bass that also appears on the song Sentimental, which is still unreleased for this moment. I decided to cut this sample with Simpler and then played the melody which I wanted to, and right now you have at the beginning also this new bass, which sounds like this. Yeah, I think it's very nice. It's very tame but still full, and I think it's all the parts of the instrumental, and right now we can finally move on to the
vocals.
So I don't want to keep the video too long for the vocals. I will try to keep it short. I recorded it in many parts. I usually do many takes. These takes range from things that were recorded a month earlier, from the things which I recorded last minute before putting them onto streaming services. And here you have one track with some cut up but mostly consolidated vocals, and the second one which is pretty much a copy of that, but it also has a sound font on it so that it makes the vocal a bit more full. When my producer did it, I couldn't really notice it myself, and I'm not sure if it actually makes a difference, but I decided that we can make it stay, because even if it doesn't make a difference, it still might, and it doesn't destroy anything. For the vocals themselves, I recorded them on my Shure SMB microphone, which is dynamic. It's very important for me because my room has pretty much no acoustic treatment and it has a ton of reverb. Then it is plugged into my Focusrite Scarlett 2i2, which is kind of a pretty much a meme interface, but it's quite cool. It works, so I enjoy working with it mostly when it doesn't break down. And yeah, for mixing of the vocals, I'm very I'm very petty. I just hate everything about my vocals. When there are any imperfections, I always notice all of them, so I try to get rid of as many as possible. What I did was put an EQ to change a bit the frequencies, cut the low frequencies. Then I focused on the sibilances and the resonances, then a compressor, then a de-esser, then some saturation, then OTT, and at the end we have some reverb. Also, the vocals are sent to a glue compressor, which works as parallel compression. They are also sent to, I just want to make sure, no, they're not sent to D, but they're sent to a reverb again, and they are also sent to a delay, which is very short, but it gives this like last shine. I don't really know how to describe it because the delay is very short and you can barely hear it, but if you actually try to focus on it, you can hear it. So I can try to solo out the vocals and you can try to focus on the delay.
Regulatory body. Say it's right, I imagine death around me. Yeah. Okay, cut this shit out, but you know, at least I hope so for future to be bright.
So it's very fast, it's quite quiet, but if you actually focus on it, it makes a big difference and it makes the vocals sound way more professional than they would without it. Also, to make intros for some of the vocal parts, I decided to resample the vocals with a ton of reverb, and I think I also, in one part, automated the performance shift at the end here. It's barely hearable. If you really focus on it, you can hear it, but you know, it's not that important. It's that part in the end. And I have maybe not ad-libs, but I have this vocal sample that I recorded myself in which I say never stopping, never stopping, never fucking stopping. And I think it's really cool. It adds up to the whole thing. It was inspired by a producer tag. I'm not sure which producer it was, but I remember I heard an unreleased Baby Keem song Mess with Quavo, and in that it appears behind the whole organ beat. And yeah, I just wanted to make something a bit similar to that. And I just made it with my whole vocal chain, but I also added a performance shift, -100%, which made my voice very deep. And we tried to add some EQ to cut, to make it more bright. But in the end, I decided that this version would be my favorite, and it ended up sounding like this. As you can hear, it also has a delay. And that would be it when it comes to the vocals. If you are curious, don't worry about this part on the right. It was made for the teaser that appeared on my YouTube and Instagram also. And I just cut up part of the build-up to the chorus and the chorus, to make the teaser. And I usually do so in my projects because, I have everything mixed. So that's it. In the last part, I can show you how the
mastering
was done on this song. So for the master, it's nothing too fancy. We had to adjust the volume using utility. Then we cut some of the very high and very low frequencies to get rid of those. Then an EQ to boost the low frequencies a bit in the mono and boost the high frequencies in stereo. Then a glue compressor, then a bit of saturation, a multi-band compressor, and a limiter to get this finishing touch on the master. So I think that would be it. The video is not very short, but I think it's quite more in-depth. It's a bit chaotic, I'm sorry for that. I really hope you enjoyed it. Remember to check out my profiles, Instagram, XLR547. If you have any questions, write them in the comments, text me, DM me. I will try to respond to anything you want me to.
Thanks for watching. Bye.